unless Pete Hegseth takes himself out of consideration, sometimes it's tough to know if that's truly the case, because usually this early in a process, the incoming president is going to let you handle that in the nicest way possible. You haven't gone through confirmation. You haven't been beat up. You haven't beat them up. But again, it's a big question mark. And right now, Will, we've got breaking news on Capitol Hill because a good friend of ours, and not to be controversial because I know people had different picks, but this is someone we've worked with since their time in the House of Representatives. John Thune, who is the incoming majority leader of the U.S. Senate, is meeting with Pete Hegseth right now. And Will, the significance of that meeting is that John Thune is the one U.S. Senator on track right now who can probably give him a direct read on where Republicans are, and if you get past the committee level vote, but because you don't technically have to even win the committee vote to get to the floor, but where Republicans are. So it could be a real truth moment for Pete to kind of take in and say, those that I met with that still feel like I'm on this list, is there anything I can do left to convince them, or is it just they don't like my personal record, which again has the American people have put a lot less influence on in the past. I'd say see Donald Trump for that, about marriages and things like that. It seems to more, are you competent to fight for the good fight for the American people? And we're going to watch all of this. We have a huge team, obviously, in Washington, D.C. Well, it's going to always be following these stories and follow them as closely as possible. We're not talking about this to hurt Pete Hegseth, by the way. You need bold new leadership in Washington. And I know a lot of you think of us, sometimes you see us, you say, oh, you guys would be too young for this or that. You have to realize these are people now in their 40s with families. It's actually the age where, if you look in the past, that's where cabinet officials came from. They didn't come from 75 and up. Now, we're a different time. People stay healthier longer. We have presidents who are older. But some of that, I think, is kind of age discrimination.
Right.
Some of it is Fox News discrimination, that he's been on Fox. And some is that he's just a bold speaker. Well, I mean, you could say Ron DeSantis, also presidential candidate, certainly a bold speaker, tough personality, tough guy, has shown his ability to work across the aisle, though, in Florida, and would probably be comparatively a very smooth confirmation comparatively to Pete Hegseth, because he is not an unknown to Capitol Hill. Does that mean he's going to get a ton of Democrat votes? Probably not. But is it going to drag on for weeks and we're not going to have a DOD secretary? I don't think so. And by the way, I don't just assume that it's definitely him.
Right.
I'm kind of, that's the name that popped up, but there could be others as well. And the calls I really want to get to are, you've gone through this nomination process. At this point, to our listeners, do you just trust President Trump to be making the right decisions here? And he's trying to put people in he thinks can be the most disruptive. If they believe that they are not able to get in, you've got number 2 and 3 on that list that you believe could be just as disruptive. And I think that's why the conservative movement and the MAGA movement slowed down a lot after Matt Gaetz pulled out, because when Pam Bondi was announced, they said, wait, okay, this is one of us. And we had all those sound bites from MSNBC saying she's our worst nightmare because she has the same ideology as Matt Gaetz, but she's run departments like this. She's run these big organizations successfully. So now you're going to get someone who has the ideology plus the experience. So again, some of these, it's tough to know, of course, until it happens, but it's why we do our work here at the ACLJ on that government affairs side as well during our Faith and Freedom year-end drive. We want to make sure that government affairs office is ready to go, whoever the nominee may be. We put together our own internal folders ready to go on nominees, especially as they get closer to confirmation battles. And that is a resource, Will. That is something people are donating to as well, so that our team is prepared to inform you about why this is a good pick, what to watch for in the hearings. We're not far away from those, but at the same time, I just want to let everyone know out there, it's not like we just sit here and talk about these either. We are heavily involved. We work closely with members of Congress. We work closely both with the House and the Senate, and we're getting as much intel as we can that we can share with you on the broadcast about some of these nominations that, of course, are leading the front pages and leading the headlines.
That's right. And I actually have a question for Secretary Mike Pompeo, who's joining us, Senior Counselor for Global Affairs, because the Department of Defense is kind of in the spotlight today. We're talking about the nomination of Pete Hegseth, and then the Wall Street Journal report today that it may be Governor DeSantis if Hegseth is pulled his nomination. But, we've talked about the Department of Defense failing 7 audits in a row, and there's a new report out from the GAO that says that half the Navy's amphibious fleet is in poor condition, and it's not on track to meet their expected service lives. Secretary Pompeo, you've pushed back for years against the Biden administration's DEI initiatives in our military, warning about how it makes America less safe instead of focusing on things like, maybe making sure the amphibious fleet is not in poor condition. But regardless of who the Secretary of Defense is, what do you think the Trump administration needs to do to right the ship, so to speak, and ensure our national security?
Exactly right question. I'm confident whoever President Trump picks and get confirmed will deliver against the following mission set, which is to return the military to its core focus. That report about the condition of the equipment mirrors the condition of the recruitment process. Right there, military is missing its recruitment goals by staggering amounts, leaving the military too small, undermanned, unprepared for the next generation of leaders as well. And so whoever comes in to be the next Secretary of Defense has got a management people issue, and that is returning to mission, not talking about climate change, not talking about DEI, talking about war fighting skills and how to deliver a military capable of deterring our adversaries. So the President Trump is in position to know that he's got a strong military backing up the agenda that he is laying out for our partners and our adversaries all across the world.
More than a new sheriff comes to town, but a new administration and a lot of allies like you on, and us that can be speaking to these decisions as well. We appreciate always your time. Our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, former Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo, who's going to have a lot to help us weigh in on through those tough confirmation battles, because he's been at the highest level of confirmation through being CIA Director and Secretary of State. And there's not too many people who you can hear from directly who have gone through that process recently, especially with the Trump administration.